Hi, and welcome back. So I want to start where I left off on the last video regarding when I told God that I want a divorce and he'd asked me to stay. And I told him how I felt and that I didn't agree. And he just told me that there would be consequences for me leaving. And I said that I never asked what did that mean, right? Because really, in my pride, this is what I wanted to do. So I never really asked what did that mean. And at that time, you know, I thought I understood, and I thought it would be simple or maybe manageable because you my response was as long as I can or as long as I have God, as long as I have you, I can do this. I can take whatever the consequences. I can manage whatever the consequences are. But what I didn't realize was that the consequences weren't just about me, and nor would they be just about me. Uh, I didn't, um, I didn't fully at all try to comprehend what all would be or how everyone will be affected. With the consequences, I can tell you that they didn't happen all at once. I can tell you for years, I didn't even recognize the consequences. They were so subtle. And when I began to be taught and they began to be revealed to me, the first thing that I learned was that there is a legal principle which is on earth that's also in heaven, and that is because you have a lack of knowledge of something, that lack of knowledge does not excuse you. It does not excuse us, which means because we're not aware or because we're unaware of a law or the consequences of an action, does not exempt us from the liability of the resulting outcome, right? And if you even, that even goes for if you break a law here in your state or your city, you can't tell the police, oh, I didn't know, because, oh, you didn't know, you still can get the ticket or you still can be pulled over or you still could be arrested. And I can say that things started shifting and I didn't um, really notice at first when I walked away from my family, when I walked away from my marriage. I'd moved to Chicago with my mom and my sister, and that was my stability, or I considered that my stability. But within a year of that move, my mom had to return back home to take care of my grandmother. And so I really believe that was God's opportunity or giving me the opportunity to also return. And I decided to keep moving forward in my decision. I really didn't not see that as an opportunity at that time. And I just was like, okay, let's keep it going. Let's keep it moving forward. What I also didn't notice was how things were fleeting me. I wouldn't begin to realize this until again my eyes were open. Things were fleeting me. I would gain and lose things within a short matter of time, whether it was cars, like I said, my stability. I had my mom and my sister here. My sister stayed, but again, we were all living in an apartment together. And then now with my mom moving, we had to move, right? Uh, and so there went the stability. And believe it or not, my job even seemed continuously to be in jeopardy the whole entire 10 years I remained there. Okay. The whole entire 10 years I remained there, my job was in jeopardy even until the day I left. And yes. And then there was the relationship with my children, right? I mentioned I thought that their father and I would co parent, but instead, every conversation he and I would have, there was yelling and nothing was accomplished or resolved. And it was just, and I never even considered why we couldn't communicate. I never thought about, why we can't communicate. I never even had the conversation with him about, it was, this is what I want us to do. I want us to be able to communicate so that we can co-parent. None of those things were said because it was just yelling. And again, the calls would just always be ended. And so therefore, what I desired when I was growing up, right? That was for my children to have a relationship with their father. That didn't happen. And listen, that was a big thing for me. My children having a relationship with their father, my children knowing their father, my children having the same father. Like those things were so important to me growing up. And you would think that they would have mattered or been a factor in my decision. But again, I learned with pride, everything else literally goes out the window and you are blind to what's really going on. Then there is also the desire that I had to not be a single parent. I didn't want to be a single parent. Though I did not I grew up in a single parent household and there were marriages in my family. Again, I desired to be married. I desired for, my children to grow up, in a two-parent home. Again, with the presence of their father, and what they got was a single parent household. They grew up without the presence of their father. And I'm not saying that to say anything against anybody else that's doing single parenting, uh, because I did single parenting, and obviously that was a decision that I made to be a single parent. And at the same time, when my daughter was young and she told me that she wanted to do the same thing, it would be just her and her kids, like it is with me and my kid, with her and her brother. I was like, oh no, right? And I really became, it hurt me and brought tears to my eyes because I had to tell my daughter that I apologized, and she was young, maybe 6, 7, and I'm telling her that I apologize for making single parenthood look so easy, which it absolutely was not easy. And even another thing with me doing it my way, a consequence was another prayer. That was another prayer that I refused to allow God to answer. He had all the time had it lined up, all of my prayers to be answered, right? And I chose to turn away from my own answered prayer. That's a consequence that, listen, I'm tearing up now just even thinking about that one. That's a new revelation, okay? Whew. And then there is also my daughter missing out on a father's love. I was a little girl that didn't have her father present in her life. And so I didn't experience what a father's love was other than when I asked God to be my father. But at the same time, I took that away from my daughter for her to learn, a father's love, for her father to show her how to be loved and what love looks like. That was a consequence. Also, my son, as he became older, here it is. I'm looking for mentors for him so he can learn what a man look like and what a man is and what he does and how he provides and to show him his identity, right? And not once did I even think to ask his dad. Not even once did I think to even bring that up to him that, it was, I felt like it was time. Listen, mm-mm. God had already given him who he had needed to show him how to be a man, show him how to provide, show him his identity. And here it is because of my choices and because of my desire. Now I'm using my worldly knowledge, my limited knowledge to try to find a mentor. And also not realizing in doing that was I could expose him to not just that man, but I could have exposed him and would expose him to their behaviors, their actions, even their preference. And it could and not to mention me doing that, how then he's taking on this particular man's behavior and actions and preferences that I may not even like. And then so then how do I change that? How then do I come back and change that? Right? So things that I thought I can control, you know, I thought I could control their life outcome by moving and being where I felt again, was the place for more opportunity for them to explore and discover and become. And I did use that as an excuse, like, they need to be here. They need to be in a place where there are more opportunities and and with that, I would spend hundreds and thousands of dollars in activities for them that I will receive no return on my investment. They would do the things and they wouldn't like it, or they couldn't, we couldn't finish it, or, just something would come up. And even with me teaching them that, no, if you decide to start this thing, you have to complete it, right? So even with them starting it and finishing it, completing it, but because they had no desire for it, again, no investment, no return on that investment. And then worst of all, or not even worst of all, but just again, the top of the list, to then see your children have to live their life mirroring ours. The same hurt, the same pain, and the same disappointment, right? And in both, whether it's my daughter not having her father in the household, like I didn't have my father in the household. Um, and even if she didn't feel like me and wanted her father, maybe she did want her father at a time. I mean, just again mirroring our lives, the same hurt, the same pain, and the same disappointments. Just listen. I remember hearing audibly one time, the time when my son was had gotten himself into trouble, and this right here was it. And he had gotten himself in trouble, and I I'm talking to God about it, And he says, you didn't want discipline from his father. Then he'll have to receive discipline from another. Oh, that listen is more, it was more than I could manage. Even with God on my side. Do you hear me? Did you hear what I just said? He said, I didn't want his father to discipline him. Then therefore he'd have to receive discipline from another. I mean, I absolutely could not believe God had just said those words to me. But they were so true, and and there was nothing that I could do about it. But I will say this, yes, God was there. God brought him through. Listen, on the other side of that thing, and he gave me a word and he gave me a promise even in that. And I believe now, even just looking back, that God was just giving grace and mercy to both of my children. He is giving them grace and mercy to deal with a lot of things, and to deal with that situation in their life, because it wasn't their fault. It was the sin of their parents, that God promised that he will not put on the child. But again, I said there were things that their lives mirrored ours. And so that's when it hit me. That's when it hit me. This is what he meant. This is what he meant. What I called a decision, God saw as rebellion, and I hadn't even realized it. I hadn't realized it. And I had stepped into something deeper than just a choice. And it wasn't just that God didn't want me to leave. It was about me stepping outside of what God had for me and realizing that when I did that, I didn't just I didn't just feel it, but everything connected to me would eventually feel it. And I thought that I was making a decision that I would be free. But instead, I was walking myself into a place of wilderness and captivity, and also while unknowingly tarnishing the purity of God's character. So you may ask, how did I come up with tarnishing the purity of God's character? You know what God revealed to me, that was, I will also share with you in a part three to this of this conversation. Is powerful. It is powerful, and believe me, you want to know what it means to tarnish his purity, so that you too can repent. Because it's not just in this situation that I'm talking about. I can tell you that it caused me to repent, and I've repented, and I have come to my children and I have apologized. But again, to realize, not only did I tarnish the purity of God's character, but I blocked him from giving me the answers, or for allowing him to answer my prayers. And so if this video gave you any insight, or gave you any, understanding, or if this video helped you And if this video could help someone that you know, I ask that you would share this video. I ask that you will also like and subscribe to this video, guys. And until next time, bye for now.